Modern Warfare 2019 is bringing back Modern Warfare in a brand new way, and it's fair to say that the ending has Call of Duty fans in overdrive for the next game. I've broken down the ending, I've also spoken about a theory on Alex being Simon Ghost Riley, but today we're going to be discussing the storyline of every returning character in Modern Warfare, which covers multiple from the original Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2, fully explaining the storyline for them in this reboot as well as their origin story. There are over 11 characters returning within Modern Warfare and for the next game, so there are quite a few familiar faces to get excited about. Now, just before we kick things off, if you guys enjoy this video, let me know in the comment section which of these characters are you most excited to see in the next game, and if you want Call of Duty to drop the next Modern Warfare game, Modern Warfare 2, right now, be sure to click that like button. If you are new around here and want to see more storyline content for Modern Warfare, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I cover a lot of Call of Duty story stuff. My theory video on Alex being Simon Ghost Riley has blown up, so I knew you guys wanted to see more. But we couldn't begin this video without talking about Captain John Price, who of course returns from the original here in Modern Warfare as a member of the British SAS. Now, since Modern Warfare 2019 is a reboot of Modern Warfare, Captain John Price has also changed a bit as well, and that includes his backstory as well, as within this game we don't learn about that until near the end of the campaign. At the age of 16, John Price joined the infantry and served in the British Army for 18 years. The youngest cadets to ever graduate the Royal Military Academy as a commissioned officer, is badged a member of the SAS by completing Special Service Commando selection, which proved his worth on countless covert operations over multiple deployments in the Middle East. One of those deployments we see with Lieutenant Price in 2009, where an SAS squad led by Lieutenant John Price deployed at the Tobruk prison break to escort Farah and her sisters safely from the prison break. It was sent there as Farah was sending messages to the British for help, but they were later found out by General Barkov, so during a distraction they came in at the perfect moment to save her and her squad. Escape was a success and marked the first cooperation between the SAS and Farah Karim, who would later become the commander of the Urzikstan Liberation Force. In 2011, Price was promoted to captain with call sign Bravo 6, as the officer in charge of a highly effective unit tasked with anti-hijacking, counter-terrorism, specializing in close quarter combat, sniper techniques, and hostage rescue. And that's the Captain Price we fight alongside in Modern Warfare 2019. And with the ending of Modern Warfare 2019, we know that Task Force 141 is going to be formed. Captain Price at the helm, as well as several other familiar faces, the first being Gaz, who was only revealed at the end of the game to be Kyle Garrick, the guy we're playing as alongside Captain Price throughout the entire game. Obviously, this Gaz has a very different backstory to the Gaz from the original. He also looks a lot different to the original as well, having black skin rather than white skin. The backstory for Sergeant Kyle Gaz Garrick begins in 2014, where he enlisted in the British Army, spending 4 years participating in test flights, jump competition, and marksmanship before passing selection for the Special Air Service, where he's currently serving as a sergeant for his 6th year. Past to locations such as Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Turkey, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, Garrick has spent the better part of his career hunting terrorist fighters. And as we see throughout Modern Warfare, he links up with John Price's Bravo team and enlists in a series of tasks which ends with the destruction of Barkov's factory. And shortly after that, Price works with Laswell to form Task Force 141, which Garrick, now known as Gaz, is recruited to. He's not the only Task Force 141 member, as another is Captain John Soap McTavish. Now, we don't actually know any information about Soap from the 2019 reboot. We know from the original trilogy that not much is known about Soap's early life, except he was born a Roman Catholic. He's from Scotland, which is evident from the flags on his dog tags as well as his accent. Before the events of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, he served with the 3rd Battalion Parachute Regiment prior to joining the SAS, with at least one tour in Northern Ireland. But soon after, he began his legendary journey in the SAS as the FNG. Then we begin the monumental journey through the original Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2, where Soap created the Task Force 141, and then we go through Operation Kingfish to his sad demise in Modern Warfare 3, where Price and Yuri desperately rush Soap to a nearby resistance safe house to try and save him.
Price. Not now, son. Just rest. Get a medic! Come on, stay with me, son. Price.
No. Makarov knows.
You have to go now! Get off me!
How can we talk about these characters without touching on the infamous Simon Riley, one of the biggest names dropped at the ending that is returning in the next game. Now, I've dedicated an entire video as to why I think Alex is going to be Simon Ghost Riley in the next game, because we don't know any of Simon Riley's backstory in this new reboot. But we can take a look at the fascinating backstory that Ghost does have, thanks to a fascinating comic book release just before Modern Warfare 2 called Modern Warfare 2 Ghost. So for now, we're just going to talk about the origin story of the original Simon Riley, who had a very traumatic childhood while growing up in Manchester, England, because of his heartless father, who on most days would bring back dangerous animals and taunt him with them, even going so far to force him to kiss a snake or threaten to kill him with these animals. When he and his younger brother Tommy got older, Tommy would always wear a skull mask at night to scare Simon Riley. During his early life, Simon used to be an apprentice butcher at a grocery when he grew up. And after the September 11 attacks, he joined the military, where he became an expert soldier, which got him into the SAS. Now, one day in January 2003, Simon came back home to find his family in a predicament. His mother was always getting cheated on and his brother was addicted to drugs, and he opted not to go back to his life at the military until he fixed their lives. Clearly enraged at the idea of his brother being addicted to drugs, he wanted to take down one of the biggest drug cartels. This was the Zaragoza drug cartel that was headed by a man called Manuel Roba. When he and his team made their moves and the Day of the Dead, the commanding officer betrayed them to the enemy by getting the three of them captured and brought to a torture and brainwashing facility. There, he was driven mad and tortured. And at one point, Simon was even buried alive and left by his captors. But he used this opportunity to escape and got back home successfully. It took him 4 months to recover from this experience, but he was still having temper management issues, so he was not accepted back into the military. And after having an episode with his former colleague, his entire family was killed by his former colleagues, who were both called Kevin Sparks and Marcus Washington. Simon killed the perpetrators and went after Manuel Roba once more. Now at this point, Simon Riley had gotten himself a bit of a reputation, being in the local newspapers for an SAS officer wanted in killing spree. But he also learns from his mother that his father is dying of cancer and that he should go visit him in hospital. As we learned a lot earlier on, his father was an absolutely horrible person, and learned that after all these years through childhood, his father had never changed. And the only reason he was there is because he wanted to speak to his dad about a skull face, and that the man who tortured him painted a skull on his face, which he can't get out of his head. And he couldn't stop laughing about it either, but his dad would just mock him, and orders 2 people from the military to kill his dad. He ambushed Roba's right-hand man Gilberto and tortured Roba's location out of him. He then arrived at Roba's compound and stole all of the information on the company and killed Roba. When he left, he was approached by General Shepard and recruited into Task Force 141 under the name of Ghost. On October 8, 2013, a joint Task Force 141 Delta Force operation codenamed Operation Kingfish was launched, where Ghost worked alongside John Price, John Soap McTavish, Gary Roach Sanderson, Sam Mann, and Derek Frost Westbrook. And these were the events of Modern Warfare 2. It was Ghost leading a strike team to search for Vladimir Makarov at his safe house on the Georgian-Russian border, but Makarov was nowhere to be found, but the safe house was loaded. After downloading the information regarding Makarov's operations, they headed to the LZ that was set up by Shepard, but it was a hoax. But Ghost and Roach managed to get to the LZ, but Roach and Ghost were betrayed by Shepard, who fatally shot Ghost and Roach in the chest before lighting their bodies on fire in a ditch. Easily one of Call of Duty's most saddest moments ever. Now, the 4 people we've spoken about are all part of Task Force 141, but we are forgetting 2 other vital members from Modern Warfare 2 and 3, that being Sergeant Gary Roach Sanderson and Commander Yuri. In Modern Warfare 2, you spent most of the game playing as Roach. He was a British Special Forces operator of the multinational Task 141, obviously under the command of Captain John Soap McTavish and operating behind the scenes during the World War. As we all know, Roach sadly died along with Ghost during Modern Warfare 2, but this timeline is a reboot, so there's every possibility that he is still alive, seeing as Simon Riley is. And as for Yuri, he was a Russian loyalist who was an ex-Spetsnaz operative who served in Nikolai's loyalist army army and was considered to be his best man. Yuri was also a close friend of Vladimir Makarov while serving in the ultra-nationalists, and both of them saved Imran Zakhayev's life in Chernobyl in 1996, but was betrayed by Makarov during the airport massacre, where he then served with the loyalists and Task Force 141 disavowed soldiers John Price and John Soap McTavish. However, Yuri was killed by Makarov in a joint effort between Captain Price and him to kill Makarov to avenge Soap's death. And it's quite sad and pretty brutal, but again, new timeline, so anything can happen. How could we talk about all of this without talking about the infamous Lieutenant General Shepard, who we know is alive at the end of the game and is tasked with helping John Price and Laswell to coordinate and create Task Force 141. Now, we all know he was an officer in the US Army in Modern Warfare 2 who commanded the US Marine Corps, US Army Rangers, Task Force 141, and his own elite army known as Shadow Company. He started out supporting our characters in Modern Warfare 2, only to reveal himself as the main antagonist of the game, with his betrayal to Ghost and Roach being one of the saddest moments in Call of Duty history. Now, it's unclear at this moment if he's going to turn again like he did in the original Modern Warfare 2 in the next game. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be the case in this game, as he is creating Task Force 141. And his origin story begins with the Second Russian Civil War, where he served as the Supreme Commander of the US military forces in the Middle East during the course of the Second Russian Civil War, which included the Marine Force recon units that are killed when Vladimir Makarov gave Khalid Al-Assad an order to detonate a nuclear bomb in the capital city of the Middle Eastern country. Moving alongside that, two other characters back is Sgt Griggs, who was first assigned to the US Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance, but was later reassigned to the SAS with Captain John Price because of a nuclear explosion. If you remember back in the original Modern Warfare, he played a large role in the Middle East invasion, aiding Vasquez's squad in the search for Al-Assad in a neighborhood housing a TV station. But unfortunately, Griggs' time was up by the end of the original Call of Duty 4, as he was on that bridge along with Price, Soap, and Gaz. And while trying to pull Soap in a safe position, Griggs was forced to return fire with his 1911 and M249, but took a bullet in the head, killing him and leaving Soap in the open. Obviously, during the ending, we hear that Captain Price almost took down Zakhaev in Pripyat, which references the one-shot, one-kill mission, which takes place far before the ending of Griggs' death in the original timeline. But in this timeline, that doesn't seem to have ever happened for Griggs, because he is back. Not much is known about him besides his alias being Demon 1-2, who's a sergeant in the US Marine Corps, as well as Demon Dogs. Another returning character we see near the end is Nikolai, who's part of the Federal Security Service working alongside John Price and Yegor. For anyone that doesn't know who Yegor is, he is the one guy that appears when you are interrogating the Butcher, using his son and wife to guilt trip him. Now, interestingly enough, Nikolai's name is actually just a code name. No one actually knows his real birth name. In the original Modern Warfare, he's a Russian informant amongst Imran Zakheav's ultranationalists and an ally of the SAS in Modern Warfare, who continues to help MacTavish and Price in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. He's essentially a guy that comes in and helps out whenever is needed. He plays the exact same role here in 2019's Modern Warfare, but he has had a bit of a makeover. Aside from that, we don't actually know much about him at all, but he is an absolute badass, giving Price and Garrick their own supplies of suppressed firearms and assistance during the mission Old Comrades. But when it comes to returning characters, we absolutely have to talk about the multiple different antagonists returning in this game from the original. The first being Viktor Zakayev, who's the son of Imran Zakheav and a field commander of the ultranationalists. Not much is known about Viktor's early life other than he was born in Russia to Imran Zakheav and an unnamed mother. He was close with his father and joined the ultranationalist party following its formation sometime in the 1990s to restore Russian power. He's easily recognizable by his blue striped tracksuit which he wears, and sets up a few interesting situations in the original Modern Warfare, such as starting a coup with Khalid Al-Asad to distract the United States, and it began with the nationally broadcast execution of President Yasser al-Falani. Viktor was in Saudi Arabia during the execution, riding along with him in the car that delivers him to the presidential palace and the president's eventual death. Quite a few events follow this, which forces his father to go into hiding, but Viktor continues to directly lead the ultranationalist forces in Russia. Victor, which causes the SAS and the USMC to form a joint operation to stop him. And while Victor is driving through a checkpoint formerly held by ultranationalist forces, he is ambushed by the joint task force of SAS and USMC operatives that had killed the real checkpoint officers and disguised themselves. A big chase ensues, with him eventually cornered in a 5-story building by the combined forces of the SAS and USMC, and becomes trapped on the rooftop. And when SAS operative John Soap McTavish moved to take his weapon, Victor commits suicide, shooting himself in the head with an M1911 pistol. Obviously, in this new rebooted universe, that doesn't happen. Viktor Zakayev is a huge fan of Hadir and wants to rescue him from prison. So he's going to be the main antagonist that we're going to be going after in the next game. But we can't talk about Victor without talking about his father, Imran Zakheav, who is the main antagonist in the original Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And for his origins, as he grew older, he met his future wife, who he then married, and then sometime in the 1970s, he had a child who he named Viktor Zakayev. He loved his son, going so far as to make him a field commander later on in his life, and he made his living by being a black market arms dealer in which he made a lot of money. In 1996, Imran Zakheav saw the collapse of the communist regime as an opportunity to salvage radioactive fuel rods from the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat and sell the precious uranium as nuclear material on the black market. Thus begins the huge plot points in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Of course, we all know what happens in the end. The SAS and force reconnaissance operatives attempt to flee from the silo, but the bridge that was crucial to their escape is destroyed by a helicopter. And during this firefight, Sgt Griggs is killed by ultranationalists while attempting to save Soap, with Zakhaev and his bodyguards arriving to the scene. He then personally executes Gaz and Griggs and moves to kill John Price and Soap McTavish. Zakhaev and his bodyguards are then suddenly distracted by the explosion of a helicopter, the arrival of Sgt Kamarov's troops, someone we'll speak about in a moment. And Price used this distraction opportunity to slide the M1911 to Soap, and while Zakhaev had his back turned, he and his bodyguards were shot dead by MacTavish. Now obviously, that does not happen in this rebooted trilogy, but we do know that Captain John Price did go on a mission with Macmillan to Pripyat, where he almost buried Zakhaev, which means that the exact same mission happens in this timeline than it done in the original, where he takes off Zakhaev's arm, which is absolutely iconic. Now Imran Zakheav is only mentioned at the end of the campaign, but if you play the Spec Ops mode, one of the operations involves an arms dealer called Mr. Z, which is obviously Imran Zakhayev. But spoiler alert, if you manage to complete the mission, you will have taken out Mr. Z. But it seems going into the next game, Imran Zakhayev won't actually exist, probably causing Viktor Zakayev to be even more angry, and creating a brand new story arc for this character, who I feel was definitely not explored enough in the original story. A second and final character returning is Sgt Kamarov, who in the original Modern Warfare Trilogy was a Russian loyalist who frequently tasked with helping Captain Price's SAS squad, his Task Force 141 squad, and the Czech resistance. Was first introduced to us in the original Modern Warfare during the rescue of codename Nikolai, and he also helped capture Viktor Zakayev, as well as rescuing Soap and Price right at the end of the game, as well as helping to assassinate Vladimir Makarov. Unfortunately, his time was up, as the plan was for Soap and Yuri hide in a nearby church tower while Price infiltrated a hotel where Makarov was supposedly going to meet his advisors. Price was met with an elevator door opening, with Kamarov strapped to a chair with C4 strapped all over his body. Obviously, that hasn't happened to him in this rebooted universe, as we see him appear after the credits, meeting with Kate Laswell, Captain Price, and Nikolai at an airport hangar to discuss Russian intel, where we learn he's affiliated with the Federal Security Service, and forms a new allegiance with Kate Laswell to try and take down high-value targets, and ultimately leading to our last and final returning character, which is Khalid Al-Asad, who in the original Modern Warfare was a military commander in the Middle East, featured as the main villain in the first act of the campaign until Imran Zakayev takes his place. Al-Assad's origin starts by joining Op 4, which wasn't a major threat to anyone at the time, but he rose through the ranks of the Op 4 until he was the main commander of the faction. When he became commander, he started to wear his signature glasses and beret, and at some point met ultranationalist leader Imran Zakayev, and Al-Assad became one of the so-called Four Horsemen. Al-Assad came to hate the current president Yasser al-Falani, and Zakayev contacted Al-Assad to tell him that he will help overthrow the president in a violent coup. And here we see the execution of Yasser al-Fulani, the infamous moment where he is executed live on national television, with Al-Assad personally executing him with Imran Zakhayev's Desert Eagle. Once this happened, the hunt was on for Al-Assad. The US government sent the military along with the US Marine Corps Force reconnaissance to the Middle East with orders to locate and capture the power-hungry commander, and later get assisted by Nikolai, who informs that Al-Assad may be hiding in his safe house in Azerbaijan. Captain Price, Gaz, Soap, amongst many others, are dispatched to the village where he's hiding in and is soon captured by the SAS and the loyalists. Captain Price ties Al-Assad to a chair and interrogates him, then intercepts a call on Al-Assad's cell phone. Recognizing the caller ID was the Russian leader Imran Zakheav, Price kills Al-Assad by shooting him in the head with an M1911. Now obviously, in this rebooted universe, he is still alive. And after the death of Barkov, the Al-Qatala group are looking for a new leader, and Al-Assad is that leader, who has funding and access to powerful weaponry that can turn acts of terror into acts of war. And that takes us into the many different Spec Ops operations. If you complete them all, you're greeted with a ending cutscene which reveals that Al-Assad is well and truly powerful, creating a brand new terrorist group separate from Al-Qatala. This story will obviously continue on with the operations as more release throughout the year, but it seems going into the next Modern Warfare 2, Viktor Zakayev is going to be the main antagonist, but depending on how the Spec Ops story goes, Khalid Al-Asad may also be a dangerous person, as in this new rebooted trilogy, he is well and truly alive, and is trying to take over as many different parts of the world as he can. Whew, that is going to round up all of the returning characters in Modern Warfare, including their entire backstories. This has been such a long video to create. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you stuck through all the way to the end, then you are the true goats. Give yourself a pat on the back, and be sure to drop a like rating on the video if you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on anything we discussed in this video. Any other characters and villains you'd love to see return, I'd love to hear it down below, but subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.